He's a very handsome young man, and his wife is hot, which begs the question, are they the most attractive royal couple in the world?
Very attractive woman.
Let me see.
The man, maybe?
He looks kind of like an Elvis impersonator.
He looks like an Elvis impersonator.
All right, welcome back to Drop a Pin. Today we have KB on the show because he is a geography aficionado, maybe the preeminent guy in the office as far as geography goes.
I probably know the most geography facts, but I mean, you guys are way more traveled than me. I memorize things, but I feel like if you want to learn about a place, you got to go there. And the most foreign place I've been to is probably San Antonio.
Wow, that is pretty.
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe the most virtually traveled person at the company.
Yeah, this guy is a wizard when it comes to GeoGuessr. I don't know if you have ever played that game, but it drops you some random location in Google Maps, and then you need to figure out where you are in the world. And KB is a whiz kid.
Well, there's a guy, GeoWizard. He is probably the wizard of GeoGuessr. But now there's a Pro Tour, there's a World Cup, and these guys are so good that they're not even having fun. Like, they have to memorize pages and pages of scripts on just Nigeria, and then they have every other country. So it's more of just pain and misery.
How do you get so good at that game? You just recognize certain landscapes?
It's landscapes,
Little
it's
hints.
architecture, it's road signs, like
Trash cans.
Sometimes down to trash cans, bullards, poles,
License
like
plates?
Taiwanese poles have like diagonal yellow and black stripes. It's like you're not actually learning like geography. You're just learning like little meta hacks. Mm-hmm. But at my peak, I was pretty good.
Now, you're our first in-studio guest, and seeing as you've never left the country, I thought you might choose as the location to drop a pin somewhere that you were very familiar with, say Wheeling, West Virginia, or Kent, Ohio, where you went to college.
Yeah,
But
one
no,
day.
but no. KB has chosen Bhutan as the spot that he
Bhutan.
wants to drop a pin today, and I couldn't be more excited.
I think Bhutan is the closest thing in this world to like a fantasy setting. I think it's the most unique country, maybe.
Some people have said it's the real Shangri-La.
The real Shangri-La.
Yeah.
Asian Wakanda.
Asian Wakanda, although they're not as high tech as Wakanda because they only got TV, I think, in 1999.
That's
Yep.
right.
And roads in 1961.
They're way. TV in '99 is insane.
They actually had the internet before the TV.
That's insane. So they didn't get like Seinfeld, peak Seinfeld, MASH. They didn't get some good Super Bowls.
No.
Did they get the Janet Jackson nip slip?
No. What year was that? No, probably not. Maybe now. Hopefully now.
Hopefully they can go
but
back
not
and
live
watch.
for sure.
Yeah. So like researching Bhutan, I can't tell if these people are living life the most admirable way possible or the silliest way possible.
Yeah, because I think it's, when I was researching about it, talking about it is the most geographically isolated spot on Earth. That it's it's one of the only places that is not been conquered ever, like by any type of agency, like not by the French, not by the British. Even when they tried to come in from India, they were never captured, they were never conquered, and they are completely surrounded by the Himalayas, right there. And I read that there's only 8. Did you know there's only 8 pilots in the world that are qualified to fly into Bhutan?
No, that's insane.
Now, you mentioned it's one of the few countries that has never been conquered. Do you guys know the other countries that have never been conquered?
No.
Some would say Afghanistan is up there, not being conquered. The Russians have tried. We've tried. It's been tried a long time.
It's not on the official list. I guess because countries have conquered it, it just has never worked out for the country that has conquered it, and they eventually give
Juice
up
wasn't worth the squeeze.
and leave. I mean, on this list, Thailand's up there.
Wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, because in World War II, when Japan was taking over all of Asia, they never officially took over Thailand, but I think they kind of worked out some sort of deal with them where Thailand's like, we're not going to mess with what you're doing over here if you don't mess with us. But I think they like maybe let troops in at some point. Ethiopia, but Ethiopia was colonized by Italy.
The Italians and them have gotten quite the skirmish.
It also says Turkey, but I don't know about that.
That can't be
That
right.
can't be, because like Turkey was part of the Byzantine Empire, and then it was the Ottoman Empire.
You want the onion?
Right.
Liberia. We'll have to drop a pin there.
Guessed. Isn't that like, they have to do with America? Like their flag looks American. Their
Liberia was founded by former slaves. Yeah.
That's it.
It was a bunch of slaves when they gained their freedom. They were like, well, let's go back to Africa.
Good for them.
And I don't know how they just got that land, but yeah. I know nothing about Liberia, so let's not dive too deep into that. This podcast.
Say no more, fam.
I'll leave it to them.
We're going to focus on Bhutan. Now, I think we should rewind a little bit because there's probably people listening that just have no idea where it even is. So it's a small kingdom in the Himalayas, very close to Nepal. It borders India. I think it's got a border with China.
Tibet's right there.
So Tibet, China is to the north, India to the south and east and west. It's the most mountainous country in the world, 98% covered with mountains.
And 60% covered by forest.
Yeah,
that's
so
an actual
by law. Yeah.
And they're big into conservation.
Yeah, it's the only carbon negative country on Earth.
There's 3 now.
Really?
Yeah, there's 3.
Okay.
I don't know what the 3 are, but I did read this morning it was 3, and then the rest of the things that came after that period left me.
And the name Bhutan translates to Kingdom of the Thunder Dragon.
Which is absolutely sick.
So sick.
Their flag has a dragon on it, which is probably the sickest flag. And their leader is called King Dragon. But he went to Wheaton College in Massachusetts.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, he is handsome. If
you know him? You ran around with him?
The Thunder King or the Dragon?
The Dragon King was just
Trump went to the same school.
Chilling in Norton, Massachusetts. He was a delivery driver for Mike's Famous Pizza. And everyone's like, yeah, he was a chill dude. Now he's a King Dragon.
And he's dropping your pizza off and like, actually, I'm a king. Sure you are, guy.
He's
a Dragon King at that.
He's a very handsome young man, and his wife is hot, which begs the question, are they the most attractive royal couple in the world?
I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen them either.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll just show you on my phone. The English royal family is struggling in the looks department. The most
Kate's doing okay. Kate's all right. Pippa's there still with her wagon.
Are you saying, in the looks department?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Their men are hideous. But,
Harry was fine.
You got to be a queen to be there. Very, very attractive woman.
Let me see.
The man, maybe? He looks
kind of like an Elvis impersonator.
He looks like an Elvis impersonator.
Okay.
Bhutan, it's the size and area of like Maryland or West Virginia.
West Virginia.
And the population of North Dakota or like Seattle. So very small population.
Yeah, I think they're up to like 850,000 now.
Something like 800,000.
I figured they had a small population when I learned that there's no traffic lights in the entire country.
But they do have road guards. Like they have crossing guards everywhere.
Traffic cops.
Yeah.
And they actually, they built a traffic light, and the population revolted. I love that. They were like, tear down.
That shit sucks. I don't want to fucking wait for 35 seconds.
In a lot of countries.
Because they probably don't have those like lasers that go across that let you know. You're probably just chilling somewhere in the middle of Bhutan and like, oh my God, it used to not be this way. We used to have happiness in this country.
In a lot of countries, they're tearing down statues of their rulers. In Bhutan, they're tearing down traffic lights.
The one that they built.
We will not live our life according to a color code.
But if you want to go to Bhutan, it's hard. You need to get it approved by you need a tour guide, and you need to pay like $250 per day. So they get only about 30 to 40,000 visitors a year. Mm-hmm. Plymouth Rock gets 1 million. So.
Okay.
And that sucks.
It's not hard to get the Plymouth Rock.
But it's so beautiful. It first came onto my radar in GeoGuessr, which is, I think it's kind of weird that they have Street View coverage, but it's just the windiest roads imaginable, going through like the steepest mountains with like these castle fortress type homes and buildings like on the edges of mountains. So I would recommend you going there or trying.
Yeah, I actually talked to a Bhutanese tour guide the other day. Get this, Spider met a dude from Bhutan at the Gem Saloon in Manhattan. And he was like, yo, I got like a buddy from Bhutan. You should talk to him. And put me in touch with the guy. I had a phone call with him yesterday. They would
Oh, you did? You talked to him?
Yeah, talk to him. They would love to have me visit.
I mean, that really is odd. Like knowing how small the population is.
So many odd facts. And
Like that would be like going somewhere else in the world and be like, I met somebody from Sacramento.
Yeah, just like Sacramento.
You know?
Well, here's another thing. I held a Bhutanese baby.
Oh.
So I guess in 2008 there was some major conflicts with one of the ethnic groups, and they had to leave. They had to flee, and a lot of them went to Pittsburgh and Akron.
I actually know what ethnic tension you're talking about. It was the Nepalese Bhutanese.
I think so.
So there was an issue maybe back in the 90s or something where the ethnic group that originally came from Nepal but now lived in Bhutan, they weren't abiding by the cultural rules because they have a lot of strict cultural rules in Bhutan where you need to wear traditional dress, you need to, speak the traditional language, and they weren't having that. And so a lot of them were forced out of the country. A lot of refugees went to Nepal, and I guess a lot of refugees went where?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Baldwin Whitehall High School. But I was working in early intervention where you go to homes and like work with the babies and the families. And one of the first houses I get was a Bhutanese family. And I was like, oh my God, this job is exotic. Not since then. It was black and white after that. But like that, they didn't have like furniture. Everyone sat on the floor. And the weird thing is like their language is like the only national language that isn't on Google Translate. So we had to like search far and wide to get a translator to New Junka or something like that.
And did you manage to find one?
We did. So it was a tedious process trying to communicate with this mother. But they were very nice, offered me many, many water bottles. Only needed one, but they gave me like 4.
You maybe should have refused the water at first, because I've heard it's a tradition in Bhutan when someone offers you food or drink, you're supposed to say no at first.
No at first?
No at first, and if they ask 3 times, then you're allowed to say yes.
And then you eat and drink as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, but you probably offended them just taking that water straight
slandering
up.
me in
I
Junka.
hadn't thought about this in forever, but when in 2007, I helped train Nepalese like army folks because they had because they had so much like tensions at their borders of refugees trying to come in.
Bhutanese people.
Yeah, they had to learn how to do riot control.
Oh shit!
And I helped train riot control in 2007.
That's interesting.
So we all have ties.
We
to
do.
Bhutan. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Spider was the one who had the Bhutanese tie. I just talked to him on the phone.
Yeah, but that's your tie-in officially now.
So it is very expensive to go to Bhutan, but they are trying to promote tourism a lot these days.
I didn't know that.
And because if like tourists have to pay $250 a day, it's a good source of revenue for the country. And they focus on sustainable tourism.
You got to think they got to pump those numbers up. If they're only having, what did you say, 40,000 people a year?
That's it.
Like 40,000 people a year, 250, 400 and something thousand.
But I think they don't want tourism. They don't want over tourism. They want to conserve the forests and the natural part of it.
And their culture too.
I'm saying like the number wise, like not like the amount of people, but you got to charge way more than $250 a day.
Charge more. Yeah.
Like you got to come in like $2,000 a day.
I think that's a fair price because it keeps out the riffraff of folks that are traveling for $10 a day in Thailand, like those.
You don't want them.
Dirty ass hippies from Australia.
They're looking for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that is like $250 a day is not cheap. That's gonna limit who can go for sure. I think I rarely in all of my travels, I don't think I really was ever spending $250 a day.
It's expensive for sure.
Right.
Although
you would think you could get more.
You could probably. It looks like one of the most desirable places to see.
Yeah.
So
actually, come to think of it, tourists traveling to America are paying $250 a day because when you pay $250 a day there, that includes your hotel, that includes almost all the meals, and like it's tough these days in the U.S. to get a hotel for below 200.
Because what I was getting is that it's almost like Airbnb style. Like it's not like they have hotels that are stood up. Like the tourist department pays people for you to stay with them. It's like
that's what
at
it
home.
is. Yeah. It's so interesting. Fun facts, like they give their pigs weed so to fatten them up and to put them to sleep, but they don't eat pigs. So it's not, they're just fucking with the pigs.
Hell yeah, brother. That's a good time.
They import their meats and porks, so they don't fucking eat pigs.
It's actually illegal to kill any animal in the whole country. So some people in the country do eat meat, but that meat has to be imported. No animal is allowed to be murdered.
And yak is the primary source of protein.
They eat yak.
Big yak guys.
Yak, I had some yak in Nepal. It's tasty. Had a lot of yak cheese.
What does it taste
Yak
like?
cheese?
Yeah, yak cheese is good stuff. Yeah.
Like brie?
No, it does not taste like brie. I mean, I don't know how to compare it to cheese.
Gruyere?
No, it's not Gruyere. What would I?
A Munster.
A Munster. I bet you it tastes like a Munster.
You know what?
Maybe like a
let's go with Munster.
tangy Munster.
Yeah, with a little bit of mustard on it.
Yeah, so that's wild. Yeah, killing animals is banned in the country. Cigarettes or any form of tobacco was
so
banned
maybe
for-
you shouldn't go there.
But no, they do make exceptions actually. So tobacco was completely banned for a while, but they lifted the ban during COVID-19.
Oh, that's
Smart.
a time.
That's a good time. When,
like, we got-
when people's lungs are struggling.
Yeah. Everything about this country is like paradoxical.
Now,
It's wonderful.
I was shocked to hear that. So I was like, why'd they lift the ban over COVID? It's because tobacco smuggling became so rampant over COVID. And they're like, one of these smugglers is going to bring COVID into the country. So if we just lift the ban, we'll stop having all this illegal traffic back and forth and we can regulate it ourselves. That will help stop the spread. Now, it's still extremely restricted. You can only smoke in hoon lounges there. So you can't smoke in public at all, but they'll have some designated hoon lounges around the country. And a lot of hotels, they'll have hoon lounges. Certain bars will have hoon lounges. But you can't just be walking down the street cranking a hoon.
Those guys in those lounges got to be wild
I
cards.
can't imagine the scene in there.
Oh, yeah. Viper sunglasses.
And then if you're a tourist visiting, you're allowed to bring cigarettes, but you can only bring about 200 cigarettes with you. And you have to pay for a tobacco permit while you're in the country. So I think if I went for 10 days, I could make 200 cigarettes last.
Yeah.
Well, that would be
that'd be like Sally Ride going.
Really hope.
Sally Ride's tampons.
No, yeah. I'm pretty much off the hoons. They don't have a ban on Lucy nicotine pouches, so maybe I would just bring those.
They would love Lucy.
I actually had it written down that the reason why that kerfluffle happened was that was their first democratic elections that happened in 2008. And
Their very first.
The very first ones ever. They had switched over from just a straight monarchy, which they had been for generation and generation, over to a monarchy, constitutional monarchy, kind of like England has. And so then they had like military, like where they elected generals, and that was the first time that they had like real debates and division because of elections.
Wow. So they're late to the game on a lot of things.
Yep.
Including sports.
Including sports. I mean, all I know is that their national sport is archery.
They're pretty good at archery.
Do they have an Olympian?
They have some archery Olympians, I think judo or taekwondo. 1 year, their soccer team was ranked second to last in the entire FIFA standings. So they had like a worst of the worst bowl game between them and the island of Montserrat, who was the last ranked team. There's a documentary about this.
Oh, cool.
And they won, so they're not the worst.
I feel like I'm good at geography. I couldn't find Montserrat on a map.
It's a little Caribbean island with only 4,000 people. So
Do they get a lot of tourism?
probably, I think it's British, maybe.
All right.
Probably nice.
Yeah, because Bhutan, I'd have to plan that trip far in advance. Montserrat, maybe I
Go
could
to
just
Montserrat.
head down for a long weekend.
Yeah, that's a quick weekend trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we talk a little bit about their gross national happiness?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because they don't believe in measuring a country's success using GDP. They use gross national happiness, which I assume takes into account a lot of factors to judge how content and happy their people are.
I actually have the factors that they take in.
Yes, please.
Let's see. All right, so there's 4 pillars of it. The first one is sustainable and equitable socioeconomic development, and this pillar emphasizes the importance of developing the economy in a way that benefits all of its citizens. A lot of it, when you read some of their tenets, it sounds like the tenets of communism. In a lot of ways, like a utopian communism type of thing. They have the preservation and promotion of culture. Bhutan values its unique culture and heritage, and the gross national happiness recognizes the importance of preserving traditional practices like their customs, languages. Like they still have, for instance, if you go to school, like any type of school there, you're in a government building, you have to wear like the traditional outfits.
The robe.
Yeah, you have to wear all of the traditional garb that's there. But they have 4 of them, and then there's 9 domains, which is like psychological well-being, health, time use, education, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity and resilience, and living standards.
So it sounds like they prioritize happiness and community. But if you look at the rankings of worldwide happiness, they're like 96th.
Yeah, depending on which ones you look at. Like there's a lot of different scales. And I saw some that had them like middle of the pack, some that were up high. One of the scales, I think it was from the Heritage Foundation for like happiness and like satisfaction with their life. It was Bhutan, number 1. Number 2 is Denmark. And then I clicked on Denmark, and then Denmark led number 2 in happiness, number 1 in suicide, and number 2 in alcoholism.
Okay, there's a lot of conflicting.
So it's going back and forth a lot.
You can't really trust those measures.
Finland, that's the case too. They get ranked happiest country on earth a lot, and they also get ranked country with the highest suicide rate.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense because all the unhappy people
Kill themselves.
Yeah, you take them off the rolls. So everybody that's left is happy.
Yeah.
It's only happy people.
But yes, I did see one list where Bhutan was all the way down at 96. I blame the internet because it is a very poor country. And then if all those young kids have TikTok and they're like, oh, look at how like all these other kids my age are living their lives. I mean, it sucks.
They're bitter.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently a lot of the young kids in the country are trying to move to Australia. And I think it's just because of like lack of opportunity. And yeah, the people are poor there, but they're not starving.
It doesn't seem like they're struggling like other developing countries.
Yeah, like I haven't seen any photos of slums in Bhutan. It's just they live a very simple life,
right.
And I guess some of the youth want more.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons why they're opening up tourism is because they're allowing like foreigners to come in and stay in these more rural areas where people are like the young folks, because I also read that 70% of their population is younger than 35.
Yes.
Wow. So
yeah.
A lot of kids, a lot of young people there looking to probably have fun.
Yeah.
We got to introduce them to...
There's only so much Munster yak that you can have, you know?
Well, do you know what their like drug culture is, like, or alcohol culture?
I don't. Do you know it all?
They drink a wheat type sake, like a sake instead of making it from rice, they make it from wheat, very similar, and they use it a lot, closely the way the Japanese do. Where
so they're boozers.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, it's morning time, let's have a little bit of sake together. We're going out to lunch, let's have a little sake, and they do that all the time.
Okay. So
but they'll have the way that they do it. They'll have one person in each one a village, and the person that I was listening to describe it basically said that it was like a witch's cauldron, like that they had these huge metal pots that the fires haven't gone out in hundreds of years, that they keep it going and boiling, and it's the same exact sake or whatever they call it, and they just keep adding and adding and adding to it, so it all tastes the same.
Perpetual sake.
Yeah, so like each village will have like their own sake. Right.
This country is awesome.
It's like the Ponce de Leon of sake.
Are you boys ready to get a little bit lewd when it comes to Bhutan?
Fuck yeah, I am.
All right. I'm sure you guys know what adorns the buildings and many of the windowsills of this country.
Cocks.
And they're not just phallic objects, intricate, oftentimes coming cocks with pubic hair and veins, and sometimes coming intensely.
Mid-squirt.
Just painted
Oh, yeah.
by their best artists all over buildings. They are obsessed with cocks because they represent luck and fortune, and they ward off evil spirits.
Yeah, they're actually used in place of scarecrows. It's just scare cocks. Hey, a cock kind of scares me a little bit more than a man stuffed of straw.
Yeah,
Good point.
a coming cock is terrifying.
Yeah.
A veiny cock mid-squirt. It's going to keep me... I'm going to keep my distance.
And the reasoning why I took a couple edibles last night and was reading about
That's a thing to do.
about this very specific thing, because I love dick. You guys know that.
Yeah, I know that.
And writing about it and all that. You look confused.
I know you like looking at inanimate objects and being like, would you fuck this? And I know you like talking about diarrhea. I didn't know you were a cock guy.
A sex organ sommelier.
Yeah, I just like to look at them, see what people are...
Just observe, yeah.
Like, I will never turn it down. Somebody wants to show me, I'll take a look, give you my thoughts on it. But this guy, it was the dude that basically founded the type of Buddhism that was in Bhutan. And this fella, his idea was that he would be so shocking and over the top with the parishioners that came in that it would be totally different from anything that they had seen, because he had noticed that a lot of Buddhists at the time were looking at like what they were like the basic tenets of Buddhism, and they would just get kind of wrapped up in the statue instead of what the statue represents. So he kind of like Jesus, when Jesus went to the temple and threw everything over, like all the change tables. He basically threw the change table over, but just with cum testicles. So he goes into their temples, starts stringing off fire and ropes everywhere. And everybody's like, oh my God, he's showing us that it's not the statues or the temple that it's important. It's the teachings behind it.
Yeah, and that you don't have to be a prude
Right. And
to be a Buddhist.
Yeah, and not just prude, but you don't have to be regimented. He wanted people to feel like life because they're not regimented and they're in the moment. And it's all about living in the moment, and you're most in the moment when you're about to come.
How philosophically.
Yes.
Yeah, truly.
True, right?
It is the 1 second margin where you
I started, when I was reading it last night, I was laughing at first, and then by the end, I'm like, very,
You're like,
intriguing.
yes.
This is very true.
Yeah, so that guy you're talking about, like a Buddhist saint by the name of Drukpa, he was known as the Saint of 5,000 Women, which I assume refers to his body count. So he was quite a cocksman.
Yeah.
a saint that fucked 5,000.
What did he call?
What is his heaven going to be like?
Yes.
He called his dick something.
The thunderbolt of flaming wisdom.
Yes. Yes. So there's
coolest country in the world.
So there's stories of this guy going in, and there'll be Buddhist women who are trying to meditate, and they can't get to their stage of enlightenment. So he'll come in and be like, do you want to you need to see the divine whatever,
The thunderbolt of flaming wisdom.
And then they have like stories of them going back to their villages and being like, as soon as he pulled out the thunderbolt, everything in life changed for me.
This man was a rapist.
This man, you don't know. Could have been consensual,
I
but
feel like once you surpass 2,000, you're an assaulter.
Unless you're Wilt Chamberlain.
Who had the utmost consent every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. All 13,000.
yes.
13,000.
But I think why people think that, putting a cock on your house will help protect you from evil spirits is because this saint was known to fight off demons with his thunderbolt of flaming wisdom.
That might be becoming dated. I think a lot of people in Bhutan are embarrassed by their use of cocks.
Especially in their cities.
They're clamoring for more labia representation.
cities.
Yeah, they want some pussy.
They're embarrassed. They need to lean into it.
No representation.
I would never, if I went to Bhutan, I'd obviously take a lot of videos of it, but I'm not going to be like walking around and be like, ha, cock. Like I would be very respectful.
Yeah. I would try to be. I'd write a lot of blogs probably.
Yeah.
But
Well, another fun fact is that their word for with, which is an extremely common preposition, is cum, C-U-M. Oh, okay. So you'll see a lot of like businesses just say cum bar, and that just means it's like a restaurant or a different establishment with a bar. So you'll
oh man,
so a lot of Timfu buildings, cum bar will be on above the door. So just the most absurd country in the world.
While we're on the subject of penises and potential sexual assault, we should talk about their courtship practice.
Can we go? I have one more note about our good friend Drupka.
Yes, please.
Go.
So not only was he a huge penis guy and started that for the whole country, but he also would use other forms of like irreverent means to get people's attention. There was a big festival that they had, and it was a bunch of monks from the area came, and like they had come in from Nepal and Tibet as well, and they were all going to get together. And he didn't feel like they were focusing enough on what they needed to do because their minds were clouded with all kinds of shit that were going on in their normal lives, and they weren't focused in. So he got, I don't know if have you ever seen their temple that's like carved into the mountains?
No.
It is unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a legit scene from a cartoon, like that you couldn't make this thing in real life. Like how they did it with no modern tools is crazy. But he got up into the rafters of that, pulled down his traditional guard, and sprayed diarrhea all over. No. I swear to God. And they have a festival, like a meeting every year, as a reminder of what he had to do to cleanse people of the shit that was in their minds.
So he diarrheaed
I'm trying to think
on
what I get.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand this conceptually.
He's just a wild card. A little
I guess,
unhinged.
that would overshadow any other thing that would be on my mind.
Yeah.
Spraying the diarrhea.
And how do you know it's going to be diarrhea when you get up there?
He was confident.
Yeah.
You should honestly run for like some type of political position in Bhutan.
I should.
Like they would welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
So that monastery is called the Tiger's Nest Monastery, and it's their number one tourist attraction.
It is unbelievably beautiful.
insane.
Unbelievably beautiful. It's why when they filmed one of the new Harry Potter movies, I think the prequels, Dumbledore goes to the ancient council of wizards, which is like where wizarding started, and they filmed in Bhutan for that, just because they were like, this country looks so magical.
Wow, I'm surprised they got clearance to do that.
Right. Because like that place should be used for many, many movies.
Yeah, I don't know if they used it in Doctor Strange. They may have used...
Looks like a Will Anderson spot.
So UTEP, which I don't know why, uses Bhutanese architecture, the college in El Paso.
Really?
Just so random. A lot of just
That is
nonsensical Bhutan facts.
I mean, actually, this isn't a weird fact at all, but their national dish is a chili cheese stew. So they're big chili guys.
That sounds American.
Yeah, there's a lot of their chilies that they use are much hotter than ghost pepper chilies too.
Oh,
like when foreigners go there and they want something mild, it'll be hotter than like anything that you've had here.
I think
they're spiced. They're freaks.
They're freaks. I think they don't really eat any food that is not spicy.
Yeah.
Which I think I'd be okay with, but it depends what levels of spice we're talking about. And another one of their popular dishes is butter tea, which is just tea with a slice of butter melted into it.
Probably yak butter.
Yak butter.
And their national animal, which we need to bring up a photo of this. Can you do it on the computer?
I'll try.
Because it is one of the coolest looking animals I've seen.
Yeah.
It's called a takin, so Takin. It looks like a goat on steroids.
That is insane.
Like
Whoa. It's like a goat mixed with an antelope, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
Looks like a goofball.
Yeah, he does. The guy's getting into some tomfoolery for sure.
This guy is at the cum bars.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
He's like, man, look at all those nuts, dude. People are fucking jerking off.
The biodiversity there is insane. There's like old world monkeys that aren't in any other country. There's endangered birds.
They have a deer with vampire fangs.
I'm surprised like mainstream TikTok travel influencers haven't latched onto this hard.
Probably because the amount that you can't get in.
It's just too hard to get in.
Yeah.
I kind of love that.
Too exclusive. The most exclusive club there is Bhutan.
North Korea, maybe. Or Turkmenistan.
Yeah.
But Bhutan's a place I would love to go to. Turkmenistan and North Korea, not so much.
No.
So back to their courtship practice, which is not common these days.
Yeah.
So don't think that everyone in Bhutan is doing this. Maybe just in rural villages.
And can we disavow?
Yes.
We're going to collectively disavow this practice.
You can officially disavow. Is it called night hunting?
It's called night hunting.
And if there's a girl in the village that you have a crush on, that night you will break into her house and have sex with her. Now, in the best case scenario, it's a girl and she kind of has a crush on you too, and it's just an unspoken thing like, hey, you know what? Maybe tonight you should break into my house and we can get it on. In the worst case scenario, it just becomes rape.
Yeah. This floored me.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty worst case scenario for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times though, it's like, okay, this girl likes me, I like her.
There's some type of rapport developed.
Yeah,
I did read some about that because when you sent it over yesterday, I was like, this is disturbing.
This is so disturbing.
Like, this is a terrible practice. There has been elements, and not saying it's good. Again, we disavow that there has been almost like a arranged marriage type of situation too, where like the families know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, I mean, no matter which way you try to rationalize it, it's fucking bad.
Either way, they're sneaking up on the girls in the middle of the night.
It's still bad.
Why not just schedule something? So here's what it says. Young men go out at night to sneak into girls' windows to engage in sexual activities. The prowling, that's a tough word, can be solo or in groups, depending on whether or not the man has a fixed date. It is the rural equivalent of an urban date. Don't know what that is. If one has talked with the girl, like you said, in advance, then it can be a solo activity. But usually it happens after a gathering when friends decide to go prowling for girls. That's disturbing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most boys would have a girl in mind, although they set out as a group. They disperse gradually as they find a partner.
Yeah, and they have certain tools they use to break into the homes.
So if the date is like normal and they know each other, it's solo. But if it's a sneak job, it's a group of dudes, which
I think
barbaric.
Yeah, it's
firm disavow.
It's tough. But if it goes well, and they have great sex, then the guy will just stay in her bed until the morning, and then when the rest of the family wakes up, he's like, "I'm going to marry your daughter."
That would be lovely.
I got to be honest, that seems like the worst Saturday morning ever.
Here's one of the stumbling blocks or obstacles of the practice. It is far more dramatic because this happens under pitch darkness, and traditionally the whole family sleep in one large room.
And then
so you have to be
if
the prowler must.
If you keep on reading, is this when they say that like sometimes they might get into the wrong bed and like get into the grandma's bed?
The prowler must know pretty well where the girl sleeps in order to find the right bed. But they're all in the same room sleeping. There are stories of boys getting into the wrong bed and the grannies yelling the boy out or having a good laugh. So that seems like
having a good laugh or just going through with it and then being like, hey,
you just got some old ass pussy.
Grandmas get horny
got your
too.
Goose.
They're all in the
Joke's
same
on you. You just banged a grandma.
Jesus the Ninja Turtles of sexual assault. Like you gotta do that in front of the family. I hope this isn't still practiced.
No, I read that it's gone by the wayside. I'm sure some areas, traditions never fully die.
Yes, but if you think about it, in the U.S., this happens too, but in a consensual manner. Like there are people in high school, they're like, and a girl's like, hey, come to my place tonight after my parents go to sleep. Sneak in through the window.
Yeah.
Sure, but I don't think that's remotely the same. I don't think that's the same thing.
No, they share a bedroom with their dad, their mom.
The big thing there was the girl invited.
Yeah. So that's a wrinkle here. The girl does not see the men coming.
Right. Well,
literally.
It's pitch black.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here. But hey, it's also on a brighter note. It's a very feminist country, and that like Well, no.
Of course.
Well,
What an outrageous transition.
it's a
It must be.
It sounds like it.
it's all right. It's a matriarchal society. So like women are kind of the official heads of the families and run all businesses from shops to farms. They even inherit properties, and a man moves into the house of his wife after marriage, not the other way around, as it is in many countries.
But
So,
wouldn't that
yeah.
be the house of her dad?
No, it'd be
because
the
you-
house of her mom, maybe.
The women inherit the homes, and then the men they leave to go find a wife and live with her in her home. Mm-hmm. I think that's the custom.
Yeah.
Okay. So this dude comes in through the night with a group of his buddies, sexually assaults your daughter, and then he moves in with you.
Indeed.
Seems not great.
That's best
Again.
case scenario.
In some cases, though, all right, this is obviously when it works out well.
Right.
When like the whole family kind of knows the guy is coming over that night too, and it's not like a shock. And they're
Sure,
like,
and it's
yeah.
easy, I think, for like us to look at it and be like, "Holy shit, it's just so different culturally." No, I don't want to do that. It's gonna,
No,
it's
yeah,
gonna,
no,
it's gonna be,
definitely-
yeah.
I feel
it's
like
weird.
we might be misinterpreting some things
Yeah.
about like the core practices in the country, like apologies.
Yeah,
to
like
the
the-
Bhutanese, if that's the case.
The Bhutanese tourism board is listening to this podcast right now, and they're not happy because it's not something they want to be known for.
Right.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's gone by the wayside for the most part.
Yeah.
They want to be known for their rich biodiversity, their beautiful landscapes, and their extremely well-preserved culture.
Yeah.
Because you could certainly look at states like we have, I think Oklahoma, Colorado put it up, Idaho, that were and Missouri passed it, that they were actively trying to make sure that you could still marry somebody that was 13 or 14, even if
I
you
always
were in
forget
your
like,
20s.
our country has
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if
really iffy practices.
yeah, like so if you took our most drawn out practices that aren't widely acceptable
Yeah.
but are still legal on the books, I
Right,
feel
yeah.
like you could have some significant issues there too.
Exactly. And like
There you go. Bhutan Tourism Board, we figured it out.
Yeah.
Came back around.
That's like focusing in on like our like gangs. Like
Yeah.
that's not what we do.
Oh, yeah. No, like a lot of people in China that I talked to, they were considering a trip to the U.S. and they're like, so like I'm really excited about the trip, but like I need to be indoors by 9 p.m., right? Or else I'll get, shot.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, that's not the
No.
case
Yeah.
at all. They have because like they watch a lot of movies and they see drive-by shootings. And this Chinese dude just thought if he was walking the streets after 9, there was a good chance he would
Yeah.
just get caught
Like
in a drive-by
Like
shooting.
if you went to the
My mom
Grand
thought
Canyon.
we were for sure going to die because we were having trick-or-treaters in Chicago.
Oh,
that there was going to be
yeah, that's-
like every time somebody would drive by slowly on Halloween, she'd be like, I'd be like, I think they're probably just trick-or-treating.
It's really the mainstream perception of Chicago. Like
Yeah.
all of my family, like, oh, you live in Chicago?
Uh-huh.
Dude, bullets.
Yeah, it depends what news you're watching. You can always tell someone's politics by how afraid of Chicago they are.
True.
It's a good indication. Talking about their biodiversity and how well preserved it is, Bhutan has the tallest mountain in the world that has yet to be climbed because it's a sacred mountain. So they made it illegal.
Oh, so it's forbidden.
It's forbidden to climb. I'm surprised, you see those YouTubers that like illegally climb tall buildings and film a
Always.
vlog about it. I'm shocked that like
Someone hasn't tried.
daredevil hasn't kind of snuck in and
I wonder
climbed
what
the
their
mountain.
justice system is like.
Yeah, what's
like what
their
happens if
justum-
you'd get
yeah.
caught climbing?
Do they have cops with guns?
I mean, they don't even have traffic.
What's their
lights.
crime? Do they have crime?
No, it's very
crime.
very low crime. I know that much, but I don't know anything about the justice system. We do have a segment, or I guess this is the second time we've done it, is rating a country's prison system. So I wonder.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had. I guess Norway has great prisons.
Yeah, if you're gonna do crime, do it in Norway.
Syria, really bad prisons.
Don't do it.
Yep. China prisons, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well,
I'm sure
this is the prison scale. It would not be.
compared to Madagascar or Syria.
Yeah, it's not pleasant being in a Chinese prison, but you're not being like raped or potentially murdered.
It's not El Salvador.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brutal.
I've heard.
But you don't hear about, you know how you always hear about like American gets arrested in Thailand and locked up for 10 years. I haven't heard any stories about that in Bhutan.
Yeah. Side note, did you guys see like dudes from Utah tried to overthrow the Congolese government?
Yeah.
And they got put to death?
That is one of the most insane stories ever. It was like a high school football team in Utah.
When was this?
Like recently.
Yeah. In the past 6 months.
Stage a coup on like Kinshasa.
And their friend who was from the Congo and was also on the team with them, like invited a bunch of his boys from the team to Congo because I guess he was like, my dad's super well connected there. So they all travel there, and then his dad attempts to overthrow the country. And they get wrapped up into it, and I guess like they helped him. So now I think they're still in jail in the Congo. Just a high school football team that.
Oh, they're getting executed. Unfortunate or fortunate. I don't know.
I mean, that is unfortunately.
You got to expect that would happen in Africa.
Their Congolese friend did not warn them, hey, we're going to go to Congo and attempt a coup. He was like, hey, do you want to check out the Congo?
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to be a summer vacation.
Jesus.
That's fun.
That is, yeah. We'll talk about that more when we do our Congo episode.
It's such a crazy thing to say, but we will. We'll do a Congo one. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to do Congo. I wonder if we can find a Congolese guest. Do you know any Congolese in the U.S.?
Spider probably does.
Zaw might. Yeah, I don't know any.
Dude,
you would think I would, right?
I don't know if Zaw does. Like, the thing you don't realize about Africa is it is enormous. Like,
size
just to get from Zimbabwe to Congo is like a long ass flight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like 4 continents in one, because North Africa is completely different than West Africa, which is completely different than East Africa, which is all different than Southern Africa. Mm-hmm. Are there any facts about Bhutan that we have not touched on yet that you guys would like to discuss?
There's a really cool picture of them playing baseball. If you look up Bhutan baseball, this is an image.
Oh,
I would like this on my wall.
That is so sick.
They just found baseball.
So if you're just listening, it's a picture of basically a Ken Griffey Jr. type of follow through with the bat all the way back, like just hit a rope. See the ball going. There's a little bit of fog with some nice light and a big Buddha statue that's, I mean, huge, probably 200 feet high?
Gigantic.
Yeah.
I'm just shocked that they're not playing cricket being so close to India.
I think they do. They've recently took up cricket and even basketball, but that's all I know.
Now, they don't have any diplomatic ties with the U.S. In fact, they only have like official diplomatic ties with like Bangladesh and India.
They are official member of the United Nations, so.
Yes.
But they just politically and entirely disregard a lot of countries, including China.
Yeah, they want nothing to do with China. They pretty much, their closest friend is India. And being friends with India, they can kind of like, I guess India has their back against China. Because China recently built a road that went into their territory. Bhutan was not happy about that. And China was like, oops, sorry, but we already built it, so there's not a lot you can do.
Yeah.
But they need close ties with India and Bangladesh because that's their only connection to the ocean.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's the only way they can trade anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have a lot of fresh water resources, but yeah, that's their only access to the outside world is through India or Bangladesh. So it's important they keep close ties with them.
And I think some of their older customs and the cultural norms that they have are partly because they've been closed off for so long. Like
that would make sense, I guess.
Yeah, like I have a list here.
The rest of the world.
They got their first big road in 1959. Their first diplomatic mission was in 1968, which is
really late.
I mean, that's crazy. Their first 5-year plan was announced in 1961. They didn't get an airport until 1983, which, like I said, there's only 8 or 9 different pilots that are authorized to fly in there. And I listened to someone describe what it was like, and she said it was terrifying. She was like, it felt like we crashed 4 or 5 times, while we were in the air because of the way that how the wind swirls around all those big mountains.
That's what's going
will
on.
create pockets where there's like an absence of pressure. So they'll get there and it completely drops, and then it feels like the plane had a crash landing, and then you do it a couple more times, and it's just absolutely fear-inducing.
Take an edible and
Yeah.
that'd be a
It's like she said that you kind of wrap yourself around Mount Everest, and then that's how you start your descent. You see Mount Everest, and then you go in. So 1983, their first airport, their first television and internet showed up in 1999. Their first National Assembly in 1953. They had a postage stamp in 1962. I thought a cool note about their postage stamp was now they're doing 3D stamps.
What?
And they have talking
oh,
stamps.
finally.
Yeah.
Talking stamps?
I don't know how it works.
Talking, yeah, I get it, but 3D.
Like a GIF.
Gift stamps that could like save the postal service.
Oh yeah, collect them all like Pokemon. They had their first constitution in 2008, which is when they had their first elections as well, and that's why.
Oh wait,
That's the reason why KB got to meet some people and hold the baby.
Oh,
Because the first democratic elections were in 2008. They had hydroelectric power plant that was built in 1967, and most of that power goes over to India. They pay for it, so they have a large exporting of hydropower, which is good for them. They had their first contact with the outside world wasn't until 1772.
which is late.
Very late.
Very late.
First newspaper in 1967. And the first royal wedding was broadcast in 2011 when the king married that hottie boom lottie.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
Massachusetts.
And then
boy.
they became a member of the United Nations in 1971.
The fact that he's a Massachusetts boy means like maybe I could like directly reach out to him and he could host me.
That would be unbelievably sick.
Yeah,
Wouldn't-
dude.
yeah.
That'd be I wonder how he lives, where he lives.
Stoolies, if like you're listening to this and you went to Wheaton and
Or-
happen to know the king of Bhutan.
Or any king. Let's just,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Bhutan specifically.
I would like to get in touch with some kings.
Any king.
I do know someone who knows a king. Or something like that.
Is it every Christian?
Oh my god! When I think it's when like I was going to the World Cup and someone was like, "Yo, I went to college with like the king's son. He was my boy." So it's like, and we're going to the World Cup too to support his country. I got to figure out what country that was and reach back out
Just
to the
like
guy.
drunk banner, like, yeah, yo, come chill with the king.
Yeah, yes. No, because like a lot of these kings, or at least I don't know if he was a king or a head of state, they send their kids to just like good colleges in the U.S.
Yeah.
And like the kids become completely Americanized.
So
Probably.
I mean,
like-
even Bin Laden's son went to Oxford.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was he on the basketball team?
Probably.
Does Oxford
should've
have
been
a
a
basketball
hooper.
team?
Probably not.
The British are horrible at basketball. Not like the Spanish. The Spanish are
They're
good.
really good.
So talking stamps, they were actually mini vinyl records that were like the size of a stamp.
What's the technology?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
How do you
that's
spin it?
Yeah, like then do you have to buy a miniature one-sided 33 1 RPM vinyl records playable on a standard turntable? So I think maybe you just put them around the little like they're
They're
tiny,
I bet
but
we
they-
can get one off of like eBay.
yeah.
I want one
I
of these.
gotta
They
have
actually
one. I need it for my record collection.
Yeah.
You guys record guys?
I'm not, but I like to appreciate them when
Yeah.
other people show off their collections.
Yeah.
unrelated to Bhutan, I wanted to talk to you about the lore of New Platsen a little bit because I'm very late to the game. I didn't even know it was a thing.
So yeah, this is overwhelming for me.
What is it?
It's a state that I made up in my head, like in 6th grade, and I've just been developing it mentally, like on a daily basis for almost 20 years, and now people are extracting information about it from me, and it's really surreal.
Yeah, you seem to know a lot about New Platsen.
Oh, I don't know enough I don't know enough, which is weird because I'm the god.
Make an almanac.
Do you have a map of it? Do you know what it looks like geographically?
So I have it. Yeah, I don't have an exact map because it's all in my head, but I could map it out pretty well. Like I know where all the cities are.
And culturally, would you compare it to a Midwest state, an East Coast state?
Bhutan.
a southwest state, a southeast?
Like a really,
Bhutan.
like probably culturally most similar to the Northeast.
All right. But are we talking like New
Vermont-
Hampshire Northeast
Vermont
or more
vibes.
like a
But,
Connecticut preppy?
None of the above. Like probably
Ooh.
like the coolest people from like the North, like Massachusetts or New York.
All right.
Yeah, everyone's cool there. It's just a crazy fact about New Platzen.
Everyone's cool.
Everyone's cool and really funny.
Very funny. And are they just like perfectly middle class, like not too rich and not too poor?
So I haven't gotten this deep.
Okay.
There's some people that like I'll focus in on some people, but
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like Bhutan in the fact that it's very geographically diverse. The St. Peter's Mountains in the northeast, the Dandara Mountains in the southwest. A lot of Brazilians,
Wow.
big port cities.
Dang.
all right. Now that's kind of reminding me of Fall River, Massachusetts, because that's
No.
got a huge
No, this
Portuguese
is a
population.
this is a
File-
utopia.
That where
Fall
Heidelberg's
River
from?
is not a utopia. So they don't have high rates of heroin addiction.
No, everyone's happy. They love MDMA though.
God,
But they get it in its
to
purest
New
form
Flats.
directly from Cambodia. So they're all no come downs, just bliss.
Oh.
You'd like Sapphire Island. You would.
Oh, so it is a coastal state. Yeah,
It's
got
there's 3 states on one big island in the Atlantic Ocean, but it has a perfect climate. That's where it's not realistic. In
That's what makes it not realistic.
the West Coast,
Perfect climate.
it's perfect year round, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be if it was in that area where I think it is. The West Coast is
okay. I mean, the Azores are in the middle of the Atlantic. They have a pretty decent
guess,
climate.
yeah.
It doesn't get
So
too
maybe
cold.
it is kind of realistic. It would be like the Azores.
Be like the Azores. All right, so yeah, maybe we'll have to have you on a future episode.
I would have to prep. I'd have
Yeah,
to
you'd
dig
have to
through the
prep.
annals of my mind and get some real facts.
Yeah. I when I was a kid, I used to draw maps a lot, like fake maps, and I'd be like, this is where the capital would be, and kind of just like, I could probably still find some of them. I enjoyed doing that. I never got so far into kind of inventing my own continent and thinking too deeply into the lore, but yeah, I used to just love drawing maps, or like even like city maps. Like I would make a fake bay with like an island in it, and I would just be like, all right, the bridges would be here, this is where the giant fortress capital would be, sort of like George R. Martin.
Yeah,
Kinda
well, I
just-
think
yeah.
you're on the right track. I think that's like a gateway to where I am now, and I recommend it because, like, if I'm bored, like, I'll just think about like what's going on in Eisenhower or Summerdale for like 2 hours.
All right. Yeah, I think maybe a future episode we all need to invent our fake state,
I would love
city,
that.
or country. Yours will definitely be the most fleshed out. Well, dude, thanks a lot for coming on. Would love to have you back on in the future, just
Absolutely.
because even for places you've never been, you're a culturally, geographically curious guy.
This is my favorite thing,
yeah.
and I'm obsessed with Bhutan now, and I want to learn more about it.
Look into that poop story.
The diarrhea spray to
Yeah.
clear the minds and
Yeah.
improve the focus. It was
Yeah.
like Adderall.
Now, if you ever had to do an episode of this show focused on a place that you have been to, what would be some of the contenders?
Oh man. So I've only been to like American places, but probably places that we've been on rediscovering America. I think there's a lot to Florida. There's a lot to Southern California.
Put-in Bay, Ohio.
If you want to get more obscure, like Put-in Bay. What are some interesting towns?
I mean, the probably by far the most interesting town we've been to was the town that was in it's an entire town in one apartment building.
Oh my God. Yeah. Whittier, Alaska. Like that's insane.
That is such.
Slab City, California.
Did we go there? Was that? Oh yeah, we did go to Slab City.
Everyone
Right?
just lives in makeshift homes in the desert.
Yeah, and then the Salton Sea, what was that town in the Salton Sea that we got freaked out and had to?
Was that called Bombay or
Bombay Beach.
Bombay Beach?
Bombay Beach on the Salton Sea in Southern California. Yeah. Whittier, Alaska, and Bombay Beach and Slab City. I'd say those are probably the 3 strangest places we went to while filming that show. But Whittier, look it up. That could be an episode. There's only one tunnel that gets to the town, and it's closed from like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. every night. So overnight, you're just trapped in this town. And it's got around a population of 300, and they all live in one apartment building. I get a little upset because we filmed like a really cool segment on that, but we didn't make that the focus of the whole vid. The focus of the whole vid was Alaska. And like, since we put out our video, I've seen people put out YouTube vids being like, the town in Alaska where they all live in one building, and it's like 10 million views.
Like 3-minute videos just showing what Whittier is. And then it's...
Yeah, and they'll be like, take like every TikTok I've seen on it, like, we actually got to talk to the mayor.
Talk to the mayor, the townspeople.
Yeah.
Went to the local bars.
Yeah, apparently half the town is owned by a Taiwanese guy called like Big John or
Big John.
That makes sense.
he was the man.
It does.
He was the man. Sweet. Well, yeah, you're our first in studio guest, and you'll definitely be back. So thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you guys.
Okay, that was Talking Bhutan with KB. One thing we forgot to mention, which I got to bring up because it's crazy. A lot of the country celebrates their birthday on New Year's Eve, because I think 60% of the people there don't know the exact date of their birthday due to being illiterate, or maybe they just don't keep track of that stuff. So they've decided to communally celebrate it on New Year's Eve. And I kind of respect that, because in America, everybody makes a huge deal about their birthday. Some people have a birthday week, a birthday month, but no. In Bhutan, when it's a new year, you're 1 year older. Okay, now let's get to the Getting Cultured segment of the program.
All right, welcome back to Getting Cultured. Today, instead of anybody else, we decided to bring in White Sox Dave. Dave, how are you doing?
The least cultured person ever in the history of culture.
No, but you're exactly who. No, you've been places and you speak a little Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah, you're almost fluent in Spanish. You went to Germany to visit like all the World War I, World War II battle sites.
So, all right.
Let me say this before we go in. I want to say in defense of White Sox Dave, in a lot of the around the office videos that I do, Dave gets shit on. Dave is probably top 3 or 4 most consistent to have the correct answer.
Thank you.
Underrated smart, underrated cultured around the company.
Underrated cultured.
There's
maybe not underrated.
I've told
smart.
Donnie this. I remember when we went to the Dominican. There's a difference between. I get called dumb all the time.
You do. That's what I'd say. You're underrated smart.
I do idiotic shit constantly that gets me in trouble, and then I try to talk my way out of it. There's a difference between being dumb and an idiot, I think. And
Yes.
I'm a complete and total fucking
and you actually read.
idiot.
And you read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to stay up to date on like history and like what's going on in the world and shit.
Yeah, you do.
And I think I do a better job of that than the vast majority of people.
I would say overall intelligence quotient, like the ability to know different things from around the world, you're top 7 in the office.
Yeah, Dave is very informed. Most of the things he does that lead to him being called dumb are social faux pas. So maybe your social IQ just needs to
I'm a
knocked up a
social.
bit.
I agree with you. I'm not trying to argue that point, but like there's a different way to put it, because like socially, I get along with everybody. I have fun with everybody for the most part. It's not like
what I think about
You're not
Dave,
like autistic.
no, maybe a hair.
how I feel about
everybody's a
Dave.
hair.
I think Dave, like, if he didn't have like incidents that were famous in the past, like the gum incidents,
Yes.
like if those type of things didn't happen, I don't think you have the reputation that you do. But because you do have the reputation that you do, when something like that pops up, it's magnified times 1,000.
Sure. I think that's very accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think Dave is so confident that even when he doesn't know something, he'll still just move forward like he's an expert on it. And
For
then
sure.
it's like, and then he exposes himself.
Well, now that we're in this like therapy session of breaking down
That's
White
really
Sox
fair.
Dave's brain, there is absolutely parts of
Now that we're
our
done with
job where
5 minutes of talking shit about Dave's
I
brain.
overcompensate trying to sound, but like it's me, like I'll know like 10% of something and I'll try to make it sound like I know 100% of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's fine to admit you don't know something. And that's why you're here today to ask us about something you don't know about.
So that's how I was going to start. So prior to that was a year and a half ago that we went to the Dominican, right? Or was that 2.5?
Dude,
that was
no
a year and
idea.
a half ago.
The years all run
It was
together.
a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It was February of 2023. I had never left the United States before.
January. Yep.
Well, it bled into February, I remember. But whatever. It was winter of 2023, about a year and a half ago. Year and a little more ago. Since then, I've been to Germany, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, technically Liechtenstein, few other places. So I've traveled a little bit.
Let me just say, that's fucking
more.
great. Like, for not having much experience to, like, tenfold your experience overseas in a year.
You and I are going to Turkey
awesome.
within the next month or two. I'm going to Italy, Switzerland again. Probably more Eastern Europe into the Balkans a little bit next year.
One of my favorite trips.
So I went from like a complete zero travel to never even stepping foot in fucking Mexico or Canada, being somewhat well traveled.
Like, you went on that trip, and I would say that you were probably, even if you go to one, what do you think the percentage is of people who've gone to different countries that are Americans? Maybe 20? I mean, 20, 25? Like, I can't imagine it's too much higher than that.
I would guess probably much lower than that. Like, we're the privilege that we grew up in, like, probably we were amongst a lot of people that had traveled abroad before. But as a whole, as a nation, I would say it's under a quarter.
I'd say if it's anything over 25%, I would be absolutely shocked.
I would be shocked. Yeah, I would be too.
The crazy thing is there's some people who have never left the country because they're like, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. But they go to Vegas twice a year, and those trips are probably 3 times the price of what they would have spent traveling to Mexico or even going to Europe.
So when I went to Europe, I brought my significant other. I paid for her flight out there, and that the flights out there were $2,500 total.
Did you guys fly business class?
No, we didn't. I cheaped out on the flights. I've never done that.
Wait, so 2 flights or each flight was $2,500?
No, the flights were $2,500. I also used points on my credit cards to cut it down to, it was 25. I paid $2,500 cash for the 2 of us.
Okay, I thought
and
that was
on
what
the
you were
trip
paying
total.
for each flight.
I went from Munich to Austria to Switzerland to Strasbourg, France to Bastogne, Belgium to Frankfurt, Germany. That was the like kind of loop we did. And total, including flights, I think, and this is going to like when we were in Bastogne, when we were in Strasbourg, when we were in Munich, I was Googling best restaurants in the city.
Yeah.
And those meals were like €100, which is like basically $100.
Yep.
And I think living the absolute best Airbnbs, I spent $5,000, maybe a little more than that.
Yeah. And so it's like,
and that's including the flights that were half of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a 10-day like excursion through Europe.
And I actually did look it up while they were talking and to see the percentage of Americans that have never left the country. And currently it's listed at 23% of Americans have never left the United States. Or 23% of people have left.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So 75% haven't.
Yeah. I mean, that's really significant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
like,
people that even haven't left their own state.
Yeah. Like, there's people that I went to high school with that I'm not sure they have ever left like the Pensacola region.
Yeah. I mean, my dad's one of them. So my dad, like all the males in my family, aside from my brother and I, will not get on a plane. It's like a family heirloom that you're afraid of heights and getting on planes and shit like that. So my dad has never gone anywhere. Wow. He's been born, raised Chicago. He's driven out to New York City. He's driven to Florida, but like he's never left like his little 30-mile radius. Hardly ever.
Is he even like afraid to go to downtown Chicago?
He was born and raised in downtown Chicago, so he avoids it because he grew up here.
Okay.
But yeah, like he won't come down here unless he has to. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And I mean, that's not only a U.S. phenomenon. You meet people from all over the world that have never left their village or their
I'm sure, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
Pong's
It is. Yeah. I think it's different for Europeans.
Yeah, every European has left their country.
But the Europeans feel that they're so fucking well traveled, how hard is it to get on a train and ride for
Chaps,
an hour and a half?
I swear to God, I'm an idiot. Like we just established earlier, and over the last 12 years, I've had at Barstool, I've established that. Well, I thought that America was the only country in North America, I should say, that you drive on the left side. I assumed that all of Europe, you're driving on the right side. So like, I wouldn't rent a car if I was driving on the right side, because that'd be backwards to me, you know?
Yeah.
You go to Germany. I rented a car in Germany, and I didn't get on a train. I drove everything.
Yeah.
I drove everything. And it's like going from Chicago to Indiana to Michigan. You're there in like literally an hour.
Yeah. Like
crazy.
If you drive 5 hours from Germany, you can go into, I think, like 7 or 8 different countries.
That's exactly what I did. Everything was 2 hours apart. So Austria to Munich, 2 hours. Munich or Austria to Zurich, Switzerland, 2 hours, 3 hours.
But when you look at it from like an international scale, if you go from a 5 hour drive from Florida, for example, gets you into about South Carolina.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
And
know?
you're like, oh my God, that's so fucking
And
far.
that's like one region. Like you obviously you go
you're
more if
still
you're in New
the
England.
South.
But
Like you got to drive 5 hours from Boston to New York, and that's when you start to notice some cultural differences. But you're not going to notice big cultural differences after an hour and a half drive, 2 hour drive. Whereas in Europe, people will be speaking a completely different language after a 2 hour drive.
and think about from like the perspective for those longtime stoolies that are listening in Germany right now. Like just
there
to give
were
you
a handful of them out there, I swear to God.
If you go from Beaumont, which is the furthest east city in Texas off of I-10, all the way to El Paso,
14
it's 14-hour drive.
Exactly, yeah.
Shit.
So you
Crazy.
like the distance from Texas across is longer than the distance it is from from Jacksonville to Beaumont and from El Paso to San Diego. So Texas spans just Texas itself like a third of the United States, and it's over 14 hours to get across.
It's wild, yeah. Like I was in
if
Europe
you drove 14 hours from Germany, you'd be in fucking Russia.
You'd be in Russia. It'd be a different fucking world.
Yeah.
A different
And even in
world.
that trip, when you're going from Texas, you're starting off in Beaumont, which is essentially Louisiana. So you're having like a bayou culture.
Cajun.
And then whenever you get to El Paso, you're across the border from Juarez, which is essentially Mexico. Like, so and Juarez is one of the biggest cities in Mexico that has like high crime rate, high drugs, all that shit. So the difference in cultures that you're going to cross in that 14-hour drive, I would say probably equivalent to what you would do if you were driving that same distance. Like the difference in people, not necessarily language, but the people and culture, maybe inside Europe.
But I feel like all people in Texas have like some unifying cultural identity.
I don't think so. Like, I mean, the different regions in Texas, like East Texas is so far and away different from San Antonio. East Texas is crazy different from El Paso, from Amarillo. The cultures inside Texas are
crazy.
like,
I mean, that's
legit
not
culture
even just
difference. Like if you
Texas. go to
Dallas,
Austin, Texas, it's like one of the most liberal places in the country.
I mean, you're
liberal,
Chicago,
super
Illinois
liberal, and then you
now.
have Dallas and Fort Worth that are completely different than Houston. Like Houston is one of the most international cities in the world. Like where like the amount of Asians that live there, the amount of Nigerian, like I think it has the highest Nigerian population of any city in the United States. Like it is culturally diverse.
Right.
Like the culture that encompasses Texas is so different from anywhere else in the world. Like inside one quote state.
I've like barely been to Texas. So
I have for legit like 24 hours, and it was like,
if I never go back, I wouldn't care.
Yeah. I went down there for a Celtics game when they were playing the Mavericks, and it was not great. I walked around the city. I got to see where JFK was killed. There's just like a big X on the street. And I almost got killed seeing where he was killed, because you got to walk into the middle of a busy highway to take a photo of the X. Almost got hit by a car, which would suck, because if I got killed right where JFK was killed, no one's going to remember.
No
that.
one
It's like,
cares.
that's where Wonton Don got biffed by a car.
It's where JFK and 40 other people were killed.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people died at that exact like cross. It's not like Abbey Road cross street intersection. I know it's like a strip, but
yeah,
probably a few.
Definitely more dangerous than Abbey Road. for
It's gotta
sure.
be, right?
Like it's like a legit highway.
Yeah, right. But like that, so when I traveled abroad though, like I know we're talking about culture and
Well, yeah,
different.
you do have to ask us a question at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
He's getting there.
I'm gonna get there, but so when you and I had traveled to Santo Domingo and to San Pedro de Macro, the Dominican, like we didn't go to not Punta Cana. Punta Cana.
Punta
that's
Cana,
the
yeah.
Dominican,
Which is the fancy resort town down there.
We didn't do any of that shit,
No.
and I thought that we like were immersed in the culture much more. When I was in Europe, it was. I felt like if I were just blinded and like kidnapped and dropped in Munich, a lot of times I could have just popped up and talked to someone and I would have thought I was in an American city.
Mm-hmm.
So the like culture wasn't too different. And a lot of it, like, especially Frankfurt, Germany is only like 60 years old because it got completely fucking flattened during World War II. So it's literally a new city.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, but like it's architecturally, it's a new city.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going to fucking Phoenix, Arizona or Nashville or something that's only been built up for, a handful of decades. So like the culture there wasn't like, but you go into like I've told this story ad nauseum, or I went to a produce mart in Switzerland. That was like it was maybe 4 times the size of this studio. And the food, you look at the food and it is like AI food. It looks healthier. It doesn't look like mass produced, or it's just, and that's how they eat. Like that was the number one takeaway.
Yeah, you said when you came back that you felt like you ate more than you ever had and lost weight.
I ate nonstop out there. It was constant fucking, and I came back, I was 5 pounds less. And this, like I said, I was Googling like best restaurants, like most expensive, mostly because I was like, I know I can get away with like what a restaurant would hear.
There's no reason to go cheap.
It'd be like $100 out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not traveling all the time, there is no reason to go cheap.
Mm-hmm.
No,
like you're going someplace, fucking go there.
Go there, right?
It's not a time for a value meal.
As far like that was the one culture, like
it's mind-blowing.
Shock that I had, and I came back. I'm like, I'm done eating this. I'm done drinking that, and that. And people say it on. I look healthier. I feel infinitely better.
Dude,
better.
I moved to Italy for a year. I came back 20 to 30 pounds lighter.
And you probably ate like shit. I say that in air quotes, like pasta every night.
Yeah,
right?
I wasn't going on a diet out there.
Right, exactly.
I was pounding wine all the time, crushing pasta.
That is the number one absolute takeaway. And that's not necessarily like, I don't think a culture thing like, oh, I'm getting into like, I don't know, their religion or something. That's like, unfortunately, a political issue. But like, at the same time, it is a cultural thing where they just eat healthier. That was my number one takeaway.
So what was your question?
My question was going to be this, like, so you and I talk about like war and the military and everything. Like we talk about all these, like these great men, these like Teddy Roosevelt, like obviously he has his warts as a human, insanely fucking racist, imperialist as fuck. What women, like what culture out there? I don't know if you've experienced one like where it's like a woman dominated culture where it's like it's a matriarchal.
I would say historically, you could find a lot of that in Norway. Like a lot of the Viking culture.
I would have guessed like somewhere in like fucking Africa or something.
No, there's a lot of culture inside like the Viking type of community. Like
that's awesome. Yeah.
The Nordics that really valued the woman warrior. And like they were not only the woman warrior, a lot of the times the men would go out looking for gold and glory and all that. But the women were the protectors. Even when the men would come back from like long-term war, it was the women that were involved with like protecting their homeland and protecting the culture. So Nordic regions, anywhere that has like a heavy Viking influence is going to be very dominant on the leadership of women, because they were oftentimes, because the men were going out on these crusades, and not crusades and like that term,
in that
but
sense, yeah.
Right. But going for silver and gold and glory.
It might as well be a crusade. It's a holy voyage. Probably.
It was the women that were the ones that were staying back and governing like the areas and the men didn't interfere whenever they came back. That was primarily the women.
Yeah. And they used to fight. Like sometimes they
the
would
Valkyries.
fight right next to all the other male Viking warriors.
Yeah. The Valkyrie, because they didn't.
Now, I only know Valkyrie in the World War II sense, like the operation to kill Hitler. I don't know what Valkyrie is.
It comes from Norse mythology.
Yeah.
They were like the
Talk to me,
famous
baby.
female
I
warriors.
love this shit. I don't know anything about this. This is new to me.
Yeah, the Valkyries were essentially like a woman warrior sect, and they stayed back and they were incredibly proficient. So there's two, like, really, whenever you're going to do anything, I sit up because I fucking love
And I could tell you're getting into this.
So like if you have women warriors like the Valkyrie, whenever men would go, men were incredibly violent. They carried axes, they carried shields, they carried swords, they carried spears and things like that.
Battle axes. Their ability to wage war and wage them very violently was unparalleled with like that world at the time. They were just unbelievable at their skill. Now the Valkyries stayed back and they were more precision based. So the men focused on warrior traits that involved just brute strength, essentially, like swinging a sword, swinging a battle axe, like doing that.
Trench
and having,
warfare.
like, even their shields were heavy. The Valkyries were some of the most precision fighters that there were. They had skinnier swords, so whenever like the men would come in and they were doing raids, like the berserkers, for example, like other men and different like traditional men unit had difficulty with the berserkers because the berserkers were so crazy. The Valkyries dominated the berserkers because they used precision. So when the berserkers would come in with their big battle axes and basically high on old school methamphetamines, and they would
shrooms.
But there's also amphetamines, like part of it, like natural amphetamines. Like we've talked about that a little bit before, but it's a little bit of both. But the amphetamines, like they would be fucking amped up and swinging these heavy blows. And the Valkyries, because they had smaller, more precision weapons, whenever they would go up for their big strikes, would just dagger them, like kind of like Arya, essentially from Game of Thrones, like that type of needle mentality, where it made capturing them after they had gone through large scale wars with like the English, when they would come and try to bring that back and take over a place. The Valkyries were unbelievable at archery and then precision strikes with like needles.
That answers my question.
Yeah.
So how much of that culture is prevalent in Nordic society today? Do you like have you traveled to the Nordics at all?
Never been to the Nordics.
You've never been to
I gotta get there. I got some friends in Finland that I met in Hong Kong.
Oslo.
Yeah. Do you know that Finland is not Scandinavian? It is Nordic, but the only Scandinavian countries are Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. And they were the ones that really founded Russia and created Russia.
Yeah, Prussian Empire.
No, Prussia was Germany.
Prussia was Germany, but that was Netherlands, or Denmark rather.
No,
I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Nope. It's just
okay.
True. But no, I mean, we can get into it. But
no. Oh, educate me then.
All right. So the Prussians, they were a people that were in the Baltic area, like on the coast, kind of where Poland is now. And then they kept on winning more wars. They actually evolved from the Teutonic Knights, which were like an ancient Christian sect. And then they became Prussia. They founded Berlin, and they expanded to where modern day Germany is now. And they became kind of like the strongest group in Germany. And it was the Prussians that unified the other German people to create the first German nation.
Okay.
Which was...
I thought that included like the southern Nordics, Denmark, and like it would be Western Poland, Austria. I thought it included all of that. But like that's obviously not my expertise. I was wrong when I asked, but...
Yeah, I mean, Chaps, do you want to bring up a map of where Prussia was?
Yeah.
There was a part of Prussia that got very close to Denmark for sure. Frederick the Great was like he was their legendary.
Yeah, so it did go into Netherlands, into the southern, and Austria. So I was right a little bit. I was pretty much right.
Yeah, but Denmark was always its own country. But you're right. I mean, Germany and Denmark have always been really close together. And they were kind of the ones leading the show in the first German, like the first time that Germany became its own state, Prussians were the ones in that state that had the most power. And then it got kind of dismantled after they lost World War I and then came back for a bit in World War II. But now you see where East Prussia is on that map. Like now that's, I think that's now part of Russia. There's that weird.
Yeah, it's Kaliningrad.
Yeah. Kaliningrad. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I'd love to go to the Scandinavian countries. I got to get there. So I don't know how prevalent it is in today's society, like how much power the women have. I think the other example of matriarchal societies is there's a bunch of like tribes around the world where women are running the show.
Especially in East Africa.
Yeah, there's some in East Africa. The Khasi people, which are in Northeast India, women work outside, men stay inside and do all the housework.
Also, in Artura, which is like the old New Zealand, they are very predominantly led by women. Like that culture, Polynesian culture, has a ton of women leadership in it.
And I think that like when people used to fight the old Scandinavian countries in the day, seeing some women on the front lines really freaked out the other people.
Yes,
I mean that's happened through the
obviously
course
one
of
that we're
warfare.
One that we're really leaving out, the Amazon.
The Amazon, Greek mythology, no one knows if they really existed, but they have found examples, I think, of like some of the islands.
Yeah, even in some of the River of Doubt that Dave was talking about earlier, it includes aspects of the Amazonian tribe of women warrior.
Yeah, that's why they named it the Amazon rainforest, because when they were first exploring it, I think they found female
because
warriors.
Again, it was another culture where men were the primary ones that went out and did the hunting and gathering, and the women were the ones that were in charge of essentially what would be the homestead.
Mm-hmm.
That's a culture I can get down with. I love doing nothing.
Hell,
yeah. I love being at home.
I don't know if hunting and gathering is nothing, but
well, I mean, I'll cook and clean is what I'm saying.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Sign me up. I don't understand dudes that are like, I don't want I want to be the primary breadwinner. If my spouse was a multimillionaire, I'd be so thrilled.
Yeah.
Dude, sign me up.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'll do all kinds of licking.
Okay. So you guys have had, Chaps is telling me this today. You guys have had two guys that have been to literally every country.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How many countries are in the world?
193 is what they're saying.
I was going to guess like 215. So I was been pretty close.
193 is the current. But that also depends on what you're viewing as a country. Some will say 196 because some, like the 193, sometimes doesn't include countries like
protectorates and
Taiwan.
Right. Yes. Right.
193 is just based on the UN. So whatever countries the UN recognizes.
And how many have you been to?
I got to count, but I think it's around 50.
That's wild that you have to count. So I added up my states, and I officially have been to more states than I've not been to. Did I word that right?
Yeah, so you've been to more than half.
I've been to 26 states now.
Okay.
I've been to every state except Alaska.
I don't count states that I've had a flyover in.
Right. I don't either.
Or anything like that. Like technically I had on the way home from the Dominican, I had a layover in Panama City, Panama.
Yeah, you have to leave the airport.
Yes, you have to leave the airport. I don't like, so I went to Oakland, California, and that's the only time I've had a couple layovers at LAX, but I went to Oakland for a night, literally one night, like 2 months ago.
All right,
and that counts.
If you spend a night.
Almost don't want to count it though. Same thing with, actually, I went to Austin, Texas I've never stepped foot in Texas, never even a layover in Texas. I went to Austin for like 15 hours with Sydney in like March.
That counts.
I don't almost want to count that.
What did you do there for 15 hours?
We filmed a Toyota commercial.
All right. Yeah, that counts. You filmed a full-fledged commercial.
Yeah. I think that counts.
In a city. You've been to Austin.
Yeah.
But I didn't
I think there's a difference between being there and experience it.
Right,
know?
Sure.
Like I can see what you're saying.
I've foot in like 28 states, but I've only been to 26, like overnight.
Okay. All right.
And you've been to all 50?
No, I've not been. I think I've probably been to more countries than I've been to states.
Really?
Well, if you, yeah,
I've never been to Nashville. I got to get down there, or the state of Tennessee. I've never been to Oregon, Washington.
I've never done the Pacific Northwest either.
Yeah,
Pacific Northwest is incredible.
Yeah, it looks-
I've heard.
I've only gone
Beautiful.
like twice. One of
That's-
them with a Starbucks trip with Kate, and we got to go to the Redwood Forest.
oh, with the largest trees in the country.
It was unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
and Great Sequoia National Park too, which is just outside of there. Like we got to go see that, and driving through, you're just like, this is.
So
I can't believe this is real.
we like you've traveled, both of you guys have traveled all over the world, and like when I stayed in the same pretty much region when I was in Europe, so I didn't see like, but America, you have the Pacific Northwest, you got the desert in the Southwest, you got the tropics in the Southeast, you got the fucking Great Plains. America is, I say this as a joke, but I'm like mostly not joking, it's the sexiest country on earth.
That's why some people feel like
It's-
they never have to leave the country. They're like,
That's-
oh, I got mountains.
You
I
have
got tropics.
literally fucking everything.
You have
That's
every type of
obviously me being a
environment that-
meathead
They're
American.
legit. I mean, from rainforest, you have Pacific
Everything.
Northwest
Every
rainforest.
desert.
You have desert, obviously. You have swamps like the Everglades, which are some of the
Yep.
swampiest swamps that there are in the
New
world.
Orleans, yeah.
You got tropical islands like the Florida Keys and Hawaii.
Multiple different types of mountains between the Cascades, the
And
Appalachians, the
the
Rockies,
Poconos,
and then you have like
Ozarks.
the Rockies that are in Alaska, which are vastly different than the
That's-
Rockies that are in Colorado.
So that's what I'm saying. Like when I was in Switzerland, we were paying $200 a night to stay in it was a converted mill. It was a farm mill that they converted into an Airbnb, and everything was old as fuck, but they modernized it because it was an Airbnb and everything. But you had the like old ass 500,000-year-old barn doors. You open them up and you're looking at the Swiss Alps, and I'm not like, you're talking about culture. The nature is what gets me. That is like, you open them up and you see these snow-capped mountains and you're like, why do I fucking do what I do, this stupid rat race every single day? Like just fucking slaving to the man this is how you're supposed to be living, you know?
Yeah, like why don't you
It's-
just move to a village in Austria?
Exactly.
I just
And-
want to point
and
out the boys are getting emotional about nature.
Yeah, they are.
it was like
They're
sincerely
both
emotional.
5 fireball shots deep. I'm completely sober. I feel like I need some fireball here.
I'm not
No,
wrong,
I'm
though.
good now.
I'm
It's
not
been
wrong though.
like
I'm
we
not-
stopped having
Yeah.
Fireball 2 hours ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a minute.
What-
Like, am I wrong though?
You are not wrong at all. I feel like we need to have you on for a full episode of the pod. 'Cause
Yeah.
This was meant to be like a smaller add-on
No,
segment.
but we
to the end
listen.
of a
We listen
podcast.
to the Spirit of the Lord, Donnie. That's
Yeah,
what
hey.
we need to do.
We're going to keep it
We-
all in.
But, we need to listen.
But then I do want to have you back on
Yeah.
for an episode.
yeah,
I didn't mean to like shoot you down about Prussia and Russia and
No,
stuff.
no.
Maybe when we have you back on, we'll actually dive into the real history of the Prussian
I mean,
Empire.
all of that shit is like
And-
part of the reason all the shit we're dealing with right now is like a thing. That's exactly true.
It all
fucking
goes
love it.
back to the
It all
all
kind
does.
of.
I've always said that. That's
every
what I
fucking
always
problem
say.
in this world.
No,
It's all-
There hasn't been a
everything
Friday.
that's going on in Eastern Europe. A lot of it has to do with that.
yeah,
Just
so
like
there's-
land and territory, who's got what and what is what and who's owns what. And I'm
Mhm.
not wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that led to World War II, and that led to the what Russia and Ukraine are dealing with right now.
Exactly.
It's a fucking it's what's a house of cards or
yeah. That's what they say.
domino effect.
Yep. Either
Cool.
way.
So does that mean I'm getting booted? Because I was enjoying this comment.
No, we're doing great. I think we had a great conversation. You never know what you're going to get when we go around the Barstool office to get a little bit of the Getting Cultured content.
Dave will 100% be back on the pod. The
Yeah.
main thing is that right now we just have one camera angle. When we have you on for a full pod, I want a couple camera
Yeah, we need multiple angles for
I
that.
think-
Sure.
angles. Yeah.
I think I look.
Multiple
Acceptable
angle
right
Dave
here.
is what they call him.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
that's when I get in trouble though. That's when.
All right, we're doing an outro now, Dave.